After watching Captcha Fail and Gwathorn's level 50 Warden difficulty 9 video, I thought I'd just show an alternative to the build and combat techniques, which shows that a difficulty 9 Warden can be quite viable. It's slow. I think most characters and classes and specs are very slow at difficulty 9. In fact, I don't like playing at difficulty 9 at all. I do play at difficulty 3, what used to be called Deadly Zero, and I enjoy that quite a lot. But I find difficulty 9 manageable, but tedious, which is why I don't play it. I am going to show a difficulty 9 Warden in his low 50s. But first I thought I'd come to this website, I Love Fried just to display what I think is a somewhat maybe better spec for a difficulty 9 Warden at level 50. At level 50 you should have 36 trait points, if I'm remembering correctly. And this spec is a bit different than the one that Captcha Fail showed on his and Gwathorn's video. Primarily, I went more defensively, and I think in difficulty 9, that's what you have to do. You have to go with defensive skills. I don't remember exactly what Captcha Fail had for his spec, but I do know that he had put more points into Warcry than I did. I'm only putting 1 point in there. The Warcry bonus is nice, but defensives are more important. I put the points instead into Careful Shield Work. Now, Careful Shield Work gives you a larger reduction to ranged and tactical damage when you're using the Shield Up Gambit. And the important thing about that one, and Careful Blade Work, which gives you a larger melee damage reduction with the Ready Blade Gambit, is that both of those gambits can be cast outside of combat using battle preparation. So you can set those up before you go into a battle. Just like Captcha, I have the full 5 points in critical protection, unassailable, providing longer duration on the shield gambit buffs. I chose not to take Stand Your Ground. I think it's a good trait. But there's other things that are more useful, and you have a fairly limited number of points here. And you do have to do some damage. I happen to like Practiced Fundamentals. Perhaps will show you why in the gameplay demonstration. But Practiced Fundamentals is very good for getting a lot of quick buffs, 2-builder buffs out very quickly and having them be more effective. I did put it in for this level 50 build, though. Indefatigable, very important. It increases the amount of healing you get from your shield gambits. Lasting Hope, it makes the shield all your hots last longer, including the ones from shield gambits, and of course that will help to keep you alive. I did put in Never Surrender. Never Surrender, I think, is an extremely annoying skill to use nowadays, but it is what we have. And this, for only a single trait point, reduces the cooldown from 5 minutes to only 2 minutes. Totally worth it. I do believe that morale taps are useful. However, most morale taps are most useful when you have a lot of targets. And when you're playing at high difficulty, especially the maximum difficulty, difficulty 9, you don't want to fight a lot of targets at once. You want to fight one at a time. So morale taps are relatively limited use. I did put 1 point in here, and in the long run, I think one would put more points into this, but it is not a priority. This is an emergency cooldown. It's very, very useful. Reduces incoming damage by quite a lot. It is on a fairly long cooldown. You're not going to be able to use it all the time, but with a 90-second cooldown, you can use it when you need it. And this is useful if you are consuming your advanced techniques. I think in the gameplay demonstration I'm going to do, I'm not even going to use advanced techniques at all, so neither of these things are even going to come into play. Advanced techniques, by the way, is when you is just a kind of a, call it a buff, if you will, that you consume to activate something else, like for the Free Peoples, like this particular buff. and you generate stacks of advanced techniques by simply completing gambits. But I probably won't even bother in the gameplay demonstration I'm going to do. And then I have a couple of points in Bane of Shadow because, like I said, you have to do some damage. And in the long run, you'd want to crawl up through the yellow tree and get some more of these useful things. And I do have 1 point in Mark Target. I don't think more than 1 point is really necessary, just increases the duration. The duration is pretty long to start with. Again, I'm just going by memory here, 30 or 35 seconds. That's more than long enough, especially since it's triggered by what I think of as your most important gambits to use offensively against a single target at a time, which, when you're on Deadly 9, is what you're going to try to do. You're going to try to do a single target at a time. Let's go and take a look at my actual character for a moment. So this is the character that I have on Treebeard. This is a High Elf Warden. He's currently level 53, and he's been played from the moment he got out of his starting zone up until a few minutes ago when I switched him. He was being played at Deadly, what used to be called Deadly 0 and is now called Difficulty 3. I think it's called Fearless now. But at the moment, he is at maximum difficulty, Heroic +2 or Difficulty 9. This is just for demonstration purposes. As I said, I don't like playing at Difficulty 9. I find it's just tedious. It takes forever to kill anything. I don't really enjoy that very much. But this is purely for demonstration purposes. Now, let's take a look at his spec. His spec's a little bit different than the one I just showed you as a sample level 50 Warden spec for Difficulty 9. The primary differences are that I didn't bother taking Mark Target, although I would if I were playing at Difficulty 9 regularly. I'm not even going to bother respecking for this demonstration. This is what I use for Difficulty 3, not what I usually use for Difficulty 9. I already mentioned that I like practice fundamentals a lot. I think they're really useful for getting out a lot of quick effects using just 2 builder gambits. I didn't bother taking the morale taps again. Even at Difficulty 3, I don't like tackling more than one thing at a time. The incoming damage from multiple targets, from multiple mobs attacking you, can still wear you down very fast, even just at Difficulty 3. But it's otherwise about the same. A little bit more outgoing damage from Bane of Shadow, but it's very little. In fact, I won't even be using light damage all that much in this particular example, probably. I have almost all of the racial traits. I think he has to kill more drakes to get this. I don't know. It's very unimportant. The only things here that matter are the extra damage from swords, a little extra light damage. He has a stun. He can running faster out of combat doesn't matter because, of course, he has Forced March as a Warden, which gives him a 38% movement bonus. It does not stack with the 10% Grace of the Firstborn. And then virtues. Now, again, I normally play at Difficulty 3, what is now called Fearless, what used to be called Deadly 0. So I actually have mostly offensive traits here. And at Difficulty 3, this is much more effective because you kill things faster. I have Determination, which gives me more of my primary stat, which is Agility and Physical Mastery and Crit. I have Valor, which gives me more Physical Mastery and Crit with a nice chunk of Finesse. I take Wit because it gives me more Finesse. Finesse is really useful, especially when you're fighting things that are at your level or slightly above, because you will have fewer resists to your abilities and you won't miss very often. It also adds some Crit and Physical Mastery. Then there's some Confidence, which is, again, crit and Finesse, but also a bit of Evade. And then what I think is probably the single best virtue trait you can take right now, which is Loyalty. Loyalty adds Vitality, Armor, and Incoming Healing Rating. And I think that's probably the single best trait that everybody ought to have right now for normal mode or Difficulty 9. So it's in there, and I use it all the time. I'm pretty much on all my characters too. We'll take a quick look at my LIs. This is his sword. And I just want to point out that this is not my primary character on Shadowfax. My primary character on Shadowfax is not this one. And so this character has just pretty much whatever traceries he was able to pick up. I think I purchased the heraldries from the Tracery Archive in Rivendell, because good luck getting a heraldic tracery at random. It might have been the one that he got at start when he first got his LIs. I don't recall. But in any case, you can see it's the crappy yellow uncommon tracery. But it's agility, vitality, physical mastery with the emphasis on agility. Gambit builder damage. This is a rare. This was probably from some random rare box that came from a quest or from the LI reward track. This, of course, only applies if you're doing the regular builders, not the fast builders. And because I'm a dummy, I don't remember the fast builders very often, and I'm very often doing just my regular builders. It's a pretty good tracery. I'm happy to have it. Fish shield gambit damage over time. This is not what I would have chosen, whether for difficulty normal, which is difficulty 0, difficulty 3, which I normally play on, or difficulty 9, which I'm demonstrating now. But it's, like I said, these are mostly random. Heroic Precision, I have 2 of these, so they not only give me some crit rating, but the 2 together give me a set bonus of an additional 3% crit hit chance. Again, normally on difficulty 9, you wouldn't want something like this. You'd want defensive stuff, but like I said, I just took what I could get. This is what I either had laying around or just got randomly out of boxes. Here's a look at my javelin. Pretty much the same things. Oh, this heraldry is an incomparable. What do you know? Okay, but it also was probably random. I doubt if I spent Ancient Script on it, because I think I've only been spending Ancient Script on my main character here on Treebeard. Shield Gambit Line Healing. This is a great one, and I would suggest this for difficulty 9, difficulty 3. And if you're doing challenging things, like often doing instances by yourself, or if you're tanking instances for other people, Shield Gambit Line Healing is an excellent tracery to use. I just think I got lucky. I think this was just a random one for me. Spear Gambit damage. Spear Gambit Spear Gambits are probably your key single target damage dealing gambit. So that's, again, I got lucky. Probably this was a random thing that I found, but I might have even purchased this. And then, this is the second Heroic Precision that went with the one that was inside my the slot for my sword. The 2 together not only give me the critical rating, but an additional 3% critical hit chance. Always nice to have. So, that's the character. He's wearing a level 50 teal guild-crafted gear, well, straight up and down. All of his armor, all of his jewelry. This is some random pocket items. Symbol of Wisdom. I think that's an early Moria quest reward. I think from the Epic, but I'm not positive. Also, I have 2 scaling earrings that come from the quote-unquote ultimate expansion packs of 2 different expansions that I got at deep discounts, or maybe it was free from last year's 15th anniversary event for the game. I don't remember which. But these are nice to have. They're definitely not the best earrings he could use, but they're nice because they scale. I don't have to ever think about finding a new earring. They scale with his level as he levels up. And the other nice thing is that until you get to very high levels, they also provide a bonus experience. That's not a big deal for me on Treebeard. I'm not trying to level up quickly. I'm trying to just play the game and enjoy. And one of the nice things about Treebeard is you do have an experience penalty. Only 40% of normal. That's actually one of the bonuses of playing on Treebeard, because you don't outlevel the area that you're playing in. I find it's actually still pretty easy to level up very, very quickly if I want to, using experience boosters, which you can buy in the store, but I tend to get lots of them as just free Hobbit gifts and that sort of thing. Excuse me. I'm going to have a sip of water, excuse me. So here's one of the key things I think that you need to do with a Warden. or first of all, with any character, that especially when it's playing on a high level of difficulty, and that is to get your character portrait frame, which is this, and your target portrait frame, which is this, down near the center of the screen where you can see them. I'm going to pause the recording for a moment because I really need a drink of water, and this is not working out. Okay, I'm back. Let's get back to what we're doing. So I think there are a couple of important things to do before you get started, and I would recommend this for probably any character, but especially for a character playing on a high level of difficulty. And the first thing to do is to get your character portrait frame and your target portrait frame in a spot on the screen where you can see them. Now, of course, you can see them anywhere on the screen unless you're playing with a 50-inch TV and you're sitting 6 inches from it. But it's nice to have it in the center of the screen so you don't have to go looking for it. When you're on a high level of difficulty, you are going to get hit. You're going to get hit hard, and you need to stay on top of where your health is so that when you need to, you can trigger something like Never Surrender, which is the closest thing to a warden has to an instant heal, or one of your healing potions or other healing abilities. You want to have the target portrait frame down there as well, so same thing. You can see how you're doing without having to look away from everything else that you need to pay attention to. Having them up here in the upper left-hand corner of the screen is possibly the worst place on the screen they could be. There's nothing wrong with it for completely casual play. You want to actually succeed and do well, you need to put it in a place where you can see it. The second thing is, for a warden specifically, you need to know your gambits. And with the U35, 6 new gambits were introduced. And if you weren't really on top of that, there's maybe no way that you would even know that happened. So I use a plugin called Warden Ease 2. I did not write Warden Ease 2, but Warden Ease 2 is tremendously valuable. And I'm just going to demonstrate it for you very, very quickly. The Warden Ease 2 plugin is its UI is displayed on the screen here. Now I could put it anywhere I like. I can make it smaller or larger. I can make it horizontal instead of vertical. I don't have to display every single possible gambit. I could just have a few of them, maybe the ones I don't remember very well. But I have them all on the screen because I don't only play Warden. I don't play the game every day, and there's no way I'd remember all the gambits on my own. So they're on the screen in front of me. And this is basically a cheat sheet for gambits. That's all it is. It doesn't do anything for you automatically. You just say to yourself, oh, shoot, I want to do this gambit. I forgot what it does. What does it do? And it'll give you a quick mouse over. It'll tell you, oh, Fierce Resolve, drains morale. Oh, it's a morale tap. What's the gambit builder sequence for that? Well, this is part of the Warden Ease 2 plugin down here, and it tells you the sequence to use, 3, 1, 2, or said a different way, fist, spear, shield. Now, I prefer to use the numbers. They're easier for me to remember. So 3, 1, 2. Or let's say you want to get Devastation. Oh, shoot, Devastation. I can't remember what the gambit formula is for Devastation. So you look around, you look for Devastation. Devastation. Is that even a gambit? I think I might have just made that up. Let's say you were looking for Desolation. Okay, so and there you go. It tells you what the gambit builder sequence is: 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Again, it doesn't do it for you. You still have to enter it yourself, but it tells you what they are. So now you know. You can easily remember what all the gambits are. And when I'm not thinking about a specific gambit, I usually leave that set up to show reversal. And the reason I leave reversal on the screen and directly in my face all the time is because reversal, if we look at it, it tells us that it's a corruption removal. It is, in fact, one of the only, in fact, I think the only corruption removal that wardens have. It's only a 3 builder gambit. It's very fast to build. It's especially fast if you use one of your fast builder skills instead of just your regular builder skills. So you can do it very, very quickly if you need to. But I have every gambit on the screen, and if I forget how to build one, I can just click on it, like here's a droid maneuver, and it'll tell me 1, 3, 2, 1. Boom, done. Okay. Next, there are gambits which can be used outside of combat. In fact, there are 6 gambits that can be used outside of combat, and I keep a sequence of those on my alternate skill bars to remind me what they are. Now, anybody with a decent memory wouldn't have to be reminded what they are, but I prefer to be reminded what they are. Now, the alternate skill bar is something a lot of people aren't even familiar with, so I'm just going to go off on a tangent for a moment and talk about the alternate skill bar. The alternate skill bars are, just as the name implies, an alternate set of skill bars. They only apply to bar 0, bar 1, bar 2, and bar 3. They do not apply to bar 4 or bar 5. You'll also notice I have bar 4 and bar 5 out of the way. These are things I don't normally use during combat, but I like having them in my face, so they're up there all the time. So bar 0 through bar 3 is part of the alternate skill bars. The alternate skill bars do not change when you change spec, so they are a great place to put anything that has to do with non-combat activities. So for a lot of characters, you might use them for travel skills, or your non-combat cosmetic pets, or your mounts, or emotes, or other things of that nature. Or even, buffing food and scrolls and that sort of thing, like I have over here. For the Warden, I use it primarily to remind me which gambits I can cast outside of combat, so I can buff before I start a combat when I'm at a very high difficulty level, like this example where I am at difficulty 9, the maximum difficulty. Pre-buffing before a battle, even if you don't use any buffing food or scrolls or other items, really helps. And for this example, I'm not going to use any food or scrolls or other items. Now, how do you get to the alternate skill bars? Well, there are 2 ways. There's the hard way and the easy way. The hard way is to use either the teeny tiny little up and down arrows over here, and that will get you to your alternate skill bar. A single click will take you to the alternate skill bar. A single click will take you back to your regular skill bar. If you have a war steed for that character, the first click might take you to your war steed skill bar set, and then a second click might be necessary to take you to your alternate skill bar set. This character is only 53, obviously does not have a war steed yet. The better way to switch skill bars is to use a keybind, which is what I do. You will not be able to see it because I actually have it bound to a button on my mouse, but I simply click that button. You might be able to hear it when I click it, and I'm on my alternate skill bar. I click it again, I'm back to my regular skill bar. You can set the keybinds, as you probably know, in the key mapping menu, and I don't even remember what this is called anymore. No, that's not it. This one is called, here we go. Quick slot page up and quick slot page down. So you see I have them set to not only right and left arrow on my on my keyboard if I should want to do that, but also to a specific button on my mouse, which in my case is button 2. By the way, button 2 is not the left or right click of my mouse. I do not have left or right click down to anything other than the normal functions of the mouse, left and right click. So I just use that button on my mouse, and I can go between my normal and my alternate skill bars. That's just kind of a really good general tip, which I would recommend to anybody. It's a very convenient place to put non-combat skills. Now, here's the key. For a Warden, you have very powerful gambits that can be cast when you're out of combat. 6 different ones. And you have a skill called Battle Preparation, which allows you to use gambit builders, either your fast builders or your regular builders, when you're not in combat. You just trigger that skill, Battle Preparation, which I'm going to do with a keybind, even though I could click on it. And now I can cast any of these out-of-combat gambits because I can now use my builders outside of combat. So I'm going to cast this first sequence, 2, 3, 1. And now I'm going to trigger it, and you can see this one's going to be Ready Blade. That's going to give me a big incoming melee damage buff. I'm going to get a lot less incoming melee damage, and a big parry rating buff too. And I'm going to be immune to disarms, although that rarely matters. That's what it is. So I'm going to set that up again. And as you can see, I now have that buff running on me, and it lasts for more than a minute. I also have another mod here, another plugin called Buff Bars, which allows me to track that a little bit more easily than you can by looking at these teeny tiny buff icons under your character portrait and hovering over them in the middle of combat. So before combat, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run through all six of these gambits, and I don't even have to remember what they are because the clues are right in front of me. So here's 2, 3, 1. Here's 2, 1, 3. That was, I'm going to do it again to show you what it was. 2, 1, 3. Is shield up. That gives me big tactical damage and incoming range damage reduction buff, as well as more block rating. And I'm going to do 2, 3, 2, 3. Which is Dance of War, more physical mitigation, more evade. And I'm going to do this one, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, which is Conviction. This gives you a nice heal over time. It's probably not going to last long enough to make a big difference in the battle, but it's more damage reduction and more evade. And then we've got this one, 2, 1, 3, 2. Oops, I have to clear that of the gambit first. Let's try that again. 2, 1, 3, 2, which is Shield Mastery. It's more physical damage reduction, more block rating. And finally, 2, 3, 1, 2. Which is Shield Tactics. This one is awesome. More damage reduction, more crit defense, and for a brief time, it makes you immune to stun, daze, and knockdown. Basically, it makes you immune to almost any crowd control effect. It does not make you immune to getting slowed, which can be important sometimes, especially when you need to get out of the area of one of those Eye of Sauron airstrike things. But it makes you immune to a lot of stuff for a decently long time. Now, is it annoying to have to cast 6 buffs before you start a combat? It is. And when you're on normal mode, you don't have to. And when you're on difficulty 3, which is how I normally play, which again used to be called Deadly Zero, is now called Fearless, you usually don't need it. If you're going to attack multiple targets and try to AoE them, then it's probably a good idea. But usually you don't. On difficulty 9, on Heroic +2, on what used to be called Deadly +6, maximum difficulty, you need to do the pre-buffs. And if you're in a long battle, you need to recast them and keep up those buffs. Because that's the difference between a Warden who can take hits and a Warden who melts. So we are now going to take out this Moria Wargrider, who I'm going to tell you in advance is going to be an annoyance. I would actually rather be in Assailant stance, at least to start, because I know that I can toss my javelins and get full effect from all my gambits at range. But I'm not going to. I'm going to suck it up and do it all in melee anyway. And by the way, when you're fighting even a melee target, it's more efficient to start an Assailant stance and get your first hit or two in with a prepared gambit before the target closes the distance with you. Then you can switch back to melee stance. And to be honest with you, you don't even have to bother switching out of assailant stance if you don't want to. The only advantage to melee stance is a small attack duration buff. It does help, but it's not usually going to make a difference in any one quick combat. And there's no longer a penalty with assailant stance. Before U35, if you were in assailant stance, if you got hit by a melee attack, you'd suffer what was called the harried debuff, and the harried debuff was an attack speed penalty. That just doesn't happen anymore. So it almost doesn't matter if you want to go in assailant stance. You can use all your gambits at range. You can use your gambit builders at range, and you don't have to worry about what happens when things get close if you don't want to. But for this example, I'm simply going to be in melee all the time because I do know that's how a lot of people like to play. They don't want to use their warden at range. So first thing we'll do is get all these buffs up. I'm not going to talk about them individually, and I'm probably going to stop talking right about now so I can focus on what I'm doing. So hopefully you can follow along. I'm going to be pre-buffing with all 6 of these gambits, and then I'm going to buff up with a big single target gambit. The one I'm going to use is Unerring Strike, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I'm just going to set it up in my panel so you can see what it does. Unerring Strike does some damage to start. It does a dot for a very long time, and even though it doesn't tell you what else it does, it also applies a physical mitigation debuff to the enemy if you have Mark Target. Now, I don't have Mark Target with this character because, again, I normally play at difficulty 3. This is difficulty 9. Remember, difficulty 9. So I'm going to stop talking now and kill this thing if I can. Ambush. Attack. Attack. Defense. Corruption removal. More defense. Oh, he stunned me as I tried to run out. And he's ranged. There, I got him out of that area. That area, that Eye of Sauron effect was a heal for him. Another heal for him. I have to get him out of there. And he's healing again. Boy, I really got the winners there. Ranged target. And he healed and healed and healed. Oh, poof, I'm all the way back here, huh? Oh, isn't that lovely? Okay, well, we're going to try again. This is D9. This is how it goes. You die sometimes. Am I going the right way? I'm not going the right way. There we go. Notice that I didn't use Never Surrender to give myself a heal. I didn't use my healing potion to give myself a heal. I'm trying to do these examples without using any of those kinds of cooldowns. And frankly, if I had not gotten super unlucky with the specific With the specific Eye of Sauron effects, it would have been fine. Unfortunately, the Eye of Sauron effects included heals on a mob that doesn't like to move unless you break its line of sight. So here's another one. Okay, well, we're going to try that again. So same deal. I'm going to buff up with all 6 of these. I'm going to buff with all 6 of these buffs. And then I'm going to start with Unerring Strike and work my way from there. So let's get started. Getting a little lag that's screwing up my gambits. Let's get them. And he's in a heal box. He's out of the heal box. I had to eat that because I can't move right now. And we got him. Okay, well that's great and all, but that was actually kind of pathetic. We will try again. On another one. Okay, so here's a like I said, you know what, I'm going to go to a range stance because this is just ridiculous. There's no reason to use melee stance on a ranged unit. This way I can break his line of sight if I can, and I don't even have to get close to him as long as he doesn't run away from me. You know what? I'll take this guy out instead. Okay, so same deal. Here we go. Pre-buffing. Ambush, and then attacking. And easy peasy. Now, we didn't get an Eye of Sauron effect, but there's no Eye of Sauron effect that could have been a problem. If it had been the healing effect, it still would have been centered where I am, not where he is. If it had been the usual stupid explosion, I could have just stepped out of it, and it wouldn't have even impacted my ability to continue attacking. This is one of the reasons why, especially at high difficulty, when you have a little bit of movement, a little bit of room to work, assailment stance is the way to go. There's no reason to be running in and having to deal with both the stupid heals and having to drag a ranged attacker who doesn't want to move out of the healing effect, or to have to deal with the Eye of Sauron while possibly stepping right next to a friend of the target and pulling him into the battle. So we're going to do that one more time. This time I am not going to pre-buff, and as you can see, all but my perseverance debuff, all but my perseverance buff is gone. I'm not going to buff this time. I have a little incoming healing modifier, which is going to run out before I get to attack him, but I am going to ambush him again as well. Actually, you know what? I won't even ambush this time. We'll just start attacking. I will preload the panel with Unerring Strike, and now we will get started. And of course, he ran down the stairs. Here we go. 2-1. 2-1-2. And for some reason, he wants to be in melee range with me. I'm gonna. Alright, stunned me. I really don't care. And again, pretty easy. I didn't do that so great, but it worked out fine. I barely took any damage. For some reason, that ranged attacker decided to close the range with me. I have no idea why, but it was very, very simple. I'm going to go back to melee stance and stick with it because I do think that's an important thing to demonstrate, because I know people like to go into melee, and I had some really bad examples earlier on, and I want to show a couple of superior examples. Please note also that I'm level 53 and the targets we've been attacking are level 55. In case you're wondering why I'm coughing so much, it's not because I'm ill in any way. We had a bunch of wildfire smoke in New York City the last couple of days from some Canadian wildfires hundreds of miles from here, which blew right in. And here in New York City, it was just really bad. And I think I got some of that still stuck in my throat. Anyway, let's take on one of these guys. This is a melee fella. He is going to try to heal himself. I have to be alert to that to interrupt him. Fortunately, I have a very simple interrupt skill, which I will end up using. And I am going to pull him to me, but I am going to pre-buff first. So here we go with the pre-buffs. And I'm going to pull him to me with the gambit, even though that's really not the best thing to do. Oh, no, I'm not. What am I talking about? I forgot I'm in melee stance. I would never normally start a battle in melee stance. It just doesn't make sense. And I didn't use ambush on purpose. Let's get some heals going. And, you know, we took some damage because I am spaz, and I got the wrong gambits off a couple of times. But in general, you know, this is pretty much how it goes one-on-one. I'm not going to try pulling two targets, 2 levels higher than me at Deadly 9. Maybe I could pull it off, maybe I couldn't. I would certainly have to do it by kiting a little bit, being in range stance, and to start with, ambushing, and maybe ambushing again in the middle of the battle, and it's doable, but honestly, I don't even enjoy Diddly 9, so I'm not going to do that for you. In any case, I think that the Blue Warden, handled properly, is actually very effective. I'm going to make one more pull. I am not going to pre-buff this time. As you can see, I have a couple of buffs here that are going to run out by the time I get the battle actually started, but I am going to use ambush just to give myself a little bit of a boost, and I am going to make my first attack in range stance, because the first attack should be in range stance, so you can pull the target out of the way. Okay, see, now I'm going to switch back to melee stance and let him come to me. And meanwhile, my dot, which would normally be a gigantic dot, which would suck all of his life away, is ticking away, but because it's Deadly 9, it barely does anything at all by itself. And as you can see, I took a solid amount of damage, but it really wasn't a big deal. I didn't have to think about using a potion. I had none of my food buffs going, or none of my other consumable buffs going. I didn't pre-buff, which at Deadly 9, you kind of need to do. You want to use all the buffs you can. And it's actually not bad if you can pull one at a time. I don't think you should ever pull more than one at a time at Deadly 9. Maybe there's one or two classes that could do that. Maybe a properly spec geared and buffed up Runekeeper, and I think the Blue Champion does a pretty good job, but probably not any others. Certainly not the Warden. But one at a time, even on Deadly 9, the Warden rocks. It's very, very manageable, and I suggest you try it. But you do need to pre-buff, not only with your consumables, but with the gambits that you can cast before and outside of combat. That's it. Thanks for watching if you did. This is not meant as a criticism of anyone else. I just think that this was worth showing as an alternative, because even with this character, which is not designed for Deadly 9, has almost all the wrong virtues. Everything except for loyalty is a virtue that you would not take. His spec is, not bad for Deadly 9, but probably not 100% perfect. And certainly whose allies are not at all set up in the way you'd want for Deadly 9. And yet, one-on-one, we managed to take things out 2 levels above us pretty handily. If I knew where I could get an elite, I would try an elite for you, but I'm in Moria here, and I kind of had enough. So again, thanks for watching. You probably won't see many more videos from me. I don't really make a lot of videos. Bye-bye now.